Hello and welcome to our webinar on securing Apple devices in organizations. I'm Alistair Simmons from the pre-sales team at Compnow, and I'm joined by Nader, Asrawe, Channel Manager from Jamf. How are you, Nader?
I'm great. I'm super excited to be here and share some information and insights into how to best secure Apple devices.
Fantastic. IT security is one of the major concerns for organizations today. In today's IT environment, securing organizations' devices, data, and users has never been more critical. In the workplace, we're seeing a shift from the traditional network model, where IT services and users were based on-premise, to where it was assumed all users within the network or VPN could be trusted, to where we are today with a mobile workforce, with users working remotely and applications and services moved to the cloud. With these changes, we've seen organizations need to take a modern approach to IT management and security. This requires new security tools to enable organizations to improve their security posture by reducing the risk of unauthorized access and minimizing the impact of security breaches. Today, we want to discuss the tools offered by Jamf to assist with securing Apple devices in organizations. Nader, would you like to tell us how Jamf can assist?
Yeah, absolutely. And before I do, I just wanted to start off by introducing Jamf for those who don't know Jamf, but also talk about the security landscape and the threats that are really targeting the Mac and mobile. And then I can talk about how we support that and our best of breed approach to mitigate those cyber threats. So for those who don't know, Jamf has been around for 20 years with a mission to help organizations succeed with Apple. And what that really means, Alistair, is we provide the capabilities to enable users on an Apple device, and be it a Mac, an iPhone, an iPad, and as of recent, Vision Pro. So that's what we're all about. So the question is, why should you trust Jamf? And the reason is we know these platforms better than anybody else. We support organizations of 32 million endpoints across 74,000 customers. And as you can see on the screen, we support some of the top 500 Forbes organizations, top tech companies, but we also support a lot of highly regulated industries such as banking. And as you can see in the US, we support 15 out of the 15 banks. And locally in Australia, we work with the 5 top banks as well. We also have the largest online community known as Jamf Nation. And what it is effectively a bunch of technologists sit together and discuss certain things. So if you're not one of the 150,000 individuals, make sure you do join that community and get some insights. There's some great intel on there. So as it relates to this session, Jamf also operates a threat research team known as Jamf Threat Labs. And this team has extensive amount of research in uncovering new threats that are targeting the Apple ecosystem. And I'll touch on some of their updates and discovery through today's session, as obviously it covers a lot of what we're going to speak about today.
Yeah, fantastic.
So a big part of Jamf's success is growth in the Mac and the environment. And a key customer of ours is Cisco, who's leading the way with device choice. And as we can see, since they've started the device choice rollout, they've got 60% of their users utilizing Macs, and they're forecasting that growth to be around 80% once that device refresh comes up. And an interesting feedback or survey that they've done is they've broken down or provided us a breakdown of the users' roles that utilizing or choosing to go with the Mac. And we can see in this example that it's not only marketing or product managers that are wanting to utilize a Mac. So it throws that perception out of the window. So as we can see on the screen, we have salespeople at 71%. So really showing us that it's changed from what the perception is. And Cisco have done an interesting research that users that are choosing, salespeople that are utilizing a Mac are more successful than ones that don't.
Great point there, Nader. At Compnow over the last few years, we've seen a large increase in the number of Mac devices, especially in the enterprise. As you mentioned in your previous Cisco example, we've seen employee device of choice in the enterprise being a lot more common than it used to be, allowing the user to choose a platform they prefer to work on, and I guess ultimately being more productive.
Yeah, look, spot on. And the Jamf stack's really helping organizations go on that journey because they can leverage Macs in the enterprise without having to lose that experience, but also continue to ensure the devices are secure and managed accordingly and compliant.
Yep, 100%.
So now, since we've covered off, a bit about Jamf and some of the activity, let's talk about the threat landscape and really some of the research that our Threat Labs team have uncovered over the last 12 months. So again, Apple are increasing in the market, and obviously the result of malicious actors are targeting them even more. So according to IDC, and a bit of a US stats here, but apologies for it, but according to IDC, 1 in 4 devices or computers are a Mac, which is roughly 17% growth from what we've seen on previous years. And again, in this region, obviously, we've seen that growth with some of the work that we've done together. And from a mobile perspective, we also see that 1 in 3 mobile devices are a iPhone, which is huge. And specifically to our region, in the enterprise, 75% of devices are an iPhone, which is huge numbers and huge penetration in the market. So the question is, what's Apple doing to combat that growth? And in short, they're doing a fair bit. So a lot of and I'd encourage everybody to familiarize with their platform security guide available on the QR code on the screen. And this is where Apple shows some of their key focus areas over the last 12 months.
Yeah, for sure. And with the latest WWDC, we saw Apple keep its strong focus on security. One I'd like to call out is the rapid security response, which is one of the most important security enhancements released by Apple for some time.
Absolutely.
It allows Apple to deploy updates to address highly critical security vulnerabilities in between major software updates. They've proven to be very effective, especially as they can be configured and installed automatically and silently through an MDM like Jamf Pro.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it wasn't that long ago that Apple publicly announced that there is a malware problem on the Mac. And this is where they introduced the lockdown mode. And what that does is it sort of allows the device to be locked down for highly targeted attacks like spyware, Pegasus spyware on these devices. Now, the challenge, what we found is through our threat research team, is that they're able to mimic that lockdown screen, which sort of gives those users the false sense of security, going, oh, okay, my device is locked down, I'm secure, but in fact, it's just a mimic screen. And then lastly, around the endpoint security and API declarative device really allows security solutions like Jamf Protect to sit natively on the device and make sure that the device is secure and while keeping that experience great.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, people are overwhelming wanting to use Apple, right? And it's our responsibility as security people to make sure that that's possible. The biggest question I get asked often is, do we need to secure the Mac? And the answer is yes. And interestingly, there's this misconception or marketing myth that Mac are impervious to viruses. And a company called Moonlog who surveyed their users, and 25% of them thought that virus does not exist on a Mac or their devices are sustainable to viruses. And the reality is it's not hard to see where this came from, as Apple pushed that narrative significantly with this ad in the early 2000s. And again, look, it's true. Apple's ecosystem is securer than Microsoft and Google. However, we've seen in recent years, or even last year, multiple Mac families been created and been discovered on the devices, which is really evidence that the threat landscape has changed and has evolved significantly. And ironically, that false sense of security also means that both the IT teams and users are not thinking that there is a problem or there is a risk when it comes to utilizing a Mac device. So I just wanted to share research done by our Threat Labs team, which is known as the 360 report, which we release annually. And I just wanted to share some key call-outs and stats from that report itself. And I know we just touched on this, but 21 Mac malware families were identified in 2023. And what that really demonstrates is that the attacks are starting to target that Mac OS environment more than ever. And it's one due to that misconception that we keep speaking about. But it's also a lot of the security tools that are out there aren't designed to look for those known threats to Mac. Which leads me to my second point, that 39% of organizations have one device running with a known malware on it. So which is absolutely crazy to think.
For sure. Oh, well, and 9% for phishing. I find that really interesting. I always thought it would be a lot higher from what I've seen from our clients.
Yeah, look, the stat on the screen is a bit of an interesting one. When we're talking about percentage, it's calculated both across Mac and mobile. But in saying that, mobile users are 3 times more likely to get phished. So obviously the numbers are a bit skewed because it's looking at all Apple and mobile users. Yeah. So just on this slide, starting from right to left, we can see that 20% of organizations were affected by malicious traffic. And the big reason is that, again, that perception piece, that 57% of users still believe that malware doesn't exist on a Mac OS. And you can see, Alistair, one of the biggest issues is that misconception, right? And it's that standard security tools aren't doing the job. So something that's also very topical at the moment and has not been a really focus area for a lot of organizations, which is mobile. And a lot of the malicious actors tend to use mobile as that Trojan horse into that environment. And you just touched on phishing. Obviously, you raised a good point on that, but that continues to be the #1 threat when it comes to mobiles. It's a blind spot for IT teams. Also, a challenge that IT teams have is ensuring that apps are not being downloaded from third-party app stores. Now, traditionally, this was something that more relates to Android devices, but we've seen in Europe that the third-party app stores on OS systems is coming to fruition, which, based on history, it's only a matter of time before that comes into gets regulated in our region as well.
For sure. One of the most common phishing attacks I've seen on my mobile phone has been messages prompting to pay unpaid tolls.
Yeah, look, that's a great one. And the phishing attacks are getting more and more sophisticated as now they're starting to replicate corporate and business applications like Microsoft and Dropbox. And they're starting to utilize different means. So traditionally it was, if you go back in earlier times where it was over email was phishing, and then there were spam filters that were put in for that. Now the target is SMS. Now they're expanding to social media app like WhatsApp and LinkedIn and what have you. And that's a great example around phishing. And we're seeing these sophisticated attacks mimicking more corporate tools now like Microsoft and Dropbox. And across multiple means. So it could be anything from social media to SMS and email. So it's always moving. That threat landscape's always changing and advancing. So obviously we touched on all the different types of threats. Now I would like to share what Jamf is doing to secure those Mac and mobiles and how we believe is the best approach to make sure that that environment is secure. So our approach when it comes to Jamf Protect is to provide a security solution for Mac OS that amplifies it to better prevent and have stronger controls for the IT teams and visibility. And most importantly, and this is our motto, right? It's Apple first, Apple best. So it's all about not losing that native experience and not making it feel clunky on the device for that when the user goes to use it. So the device is secure, but the user experience is not changing. And something that's probably very underrated and not talked about enough is Jamf supports same-day release for both hardware and software, which is really important for organizations that are trying to be compliant or needing to be compliant. So I'll share a couple of points around Jamf Pro without going into Jamf Protect, without going into too much detail. But the way I look at it is you can break it down in 3 key pieces, and it's what I believe is a secure environment, right, by having these 3 pieces in place. And the first one is more around understanding that environment, just really to ensuring that you're aligning with the compliance, be it Essential 8 or whatever compliance the organization is trying to meet, or really from an insurance perspective, just to make sure that you're meeting that requirement and that criteria. Also, the other part of Jamf Protect is it offers an endpoint threat security prevention capability and control, and it wraps around our analytical engine capabilities, which really monitors for threats. But it is also used to enforce policies, like user policies around what they can access and what they can't access. And because it's leveraged the machine learning capabilities and category-based filtering, it doesn't require an IT team or a security team to control or manually block and whitelist domains. It's all done via that category capability. Yeah. So it's an easy use case for IT teams. Sure. It's great. So Jamf Protect offers various forms of log exports that will help organizations export meaningful information and compliance and governance requirements. Now, unified logging, it is a built-in capability within the Mac, but where Jamf Protect really comes in is it provides the ability to stream those requirement logs straight into the organization's team. So really helping organizations to monitor and audit any specific situations or devices. So the core functionality really is to allow organizations to drill down and have laser focus on critical events when they need it, and obviously be able to report on it. The other part is telemetry, on the other hand, will collect all system and user events for data, and again, export them into that same environment. And from a telemetry perspective, it's more around identifying the user behavior and user patterns. So if you've got a user that's chopping and changing files, installing and removing, so strange activity, this is also can be reported on through Jamf Protect. And again, all that can be logged into the same environment.
We have clients at Compnow that are required to follow a specific security standard such as CIS or NIST. How do Jamf security tools assist with establishing this security compliance baselines for organizations?
Yeah, great question. So for compliance frameworks such as CIS and NIST, we've got Jamf Compliance Editor, and that provides macOS, iOS, and iPadOS system administrators with an easy way to establish and manage those compliance framework and baseline framework.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. And for clients who already have a security stack in place in their organization, do Jamf zero-touch solutions integrate with the organization's existing security stack?
Absolutely. So the Jamf Connect ZTNA is the next generation VPN, as you know, and it's designed or sits on the back of a WireGuard capability, which integrates into other security solutions. And the way it really works, it leverages WireGuard and the micro-tunneling capability. So it sort of takes us away from that traditional VPN that we know, where it's always on, funneling all the information. Whereas due to that segmentation through Jamf Connect and the ZTNA capability, it's on demand when needed. So if a user is wanting to access a specific application or specific company domain or site, it does a micro tunnel just for that instance. So it's not always on, freeing up bandwidth of the device and keeping that user experience at front of mind.
Excellent.
So Jamf, we touched on mobile earlier and being a major blind spot for a lot of organizations, and Jamf Protect for mobile is designed to secure the users when they're at risk the most, which reality is when they're out mobile and using their devices and outside of that corporate perimeter. And something with Jamf Protect is it is designed to be a mobile device, so the mobile security. So it is a lightweight and it's designed for mobile first. It's not an afterthought, it was purposely built for mobility. And some of the stuff that it supports with, and we touch on this again, being the number one threat is phishing. So a capability of Jamf Protect for mobile is identifying any phishing attacks. And this could be through SMS, email, whatever means it may be. But as soon as the user interacts with that SMS, that link, if it's deemed malicious through our machine engine capability, the end user will receive a block page. And the cool thing is this block page is customizable to the organization. So for example, a user from Compnow was to click on this, they'll receive a Compnow logo with instructions or information around, hey, you've just interacted with a phishing link, don't do it again. So there's a learning capability behind it. And from a Protect for mobile perspective, very similar to Protect for Mac, there's an element of that content filtering and enforcing those policies. And we find it being even more so important on a mobile because they're free to roam and access whatever they want. Having those policies in place also supports from a brand perspective that, no brand damage if a user's accessing something that's illegal that they shouldn't. But a lot of those illegal sites are usually the gateway into further cyber threats. So that's where it comes in really handy. We touched on third-party applications. A lot we provide is some application support and information. So what we're doing is, from a application perspective, the administrators or the security team can understand what applications are on the device and what risk do they pose to the organization. And this could be, an application that sits in the App Store, but it's retrieving information that maybe you don't want as a corporate device to release. A perfect example of this is TikTok, where a lot of the information that sits on the device becomes the ownership of TikTok. So as a corporate device, it's probably not something that you want to have out in the world. The other component is, and this tends to be a challenge for a lot of organizations, is managing that operating software, what release date it is. What we provide is deep insights into vulnerable operating systems. So what that means is we're able to give your IT team a specific operating system that is vulnerable, with using next steps as migrating that over to the latest using an MDM solution like Jamf Pro, for example. And lastly, to confirm all this can all be transitioned and all those logs can be put into a SIEM environment, very similar to Jamf Protect for mobile, for Mac. So this really starts to make sure that organizations are compliant and everything is all tracked and noted within that SIEM. And the question I get all the time is, how do we deploy this out to the mobile device? And really it's quite simple. So Jamf Protect comes in the shape of Jamf Trust application, which is deployed silently via an MDM. Now, the preference always is, Alistair, is for it to be Jamf Pro, but we understand that organizations may be invested in Intune or Workspace ONE or whatever other MDM. We can integrate with that MDM that you have and deploy it to your end users completely zero touch. So no user interaction or any approvals from the end user is required. It just gets pushed out to that device.
At Compnow, we support clients with a mixture of iOS and Android devices. How does Jamf Protect support these different device types?
So on the topic of mobility, Jamf recently done further investment in the shape of Jamf Executive Threat Protection, which is the only mobile XDR on the market. And the real reason for this investment is to counter the targeted spyware increase such as Pegasus. And for those who don't know, spyware such as Pegasus, it's effectively based or designed to target specific users. And that exercise to deploy and target a specific user is not cheap, as to deploy Pegasus can cost anywhere upwards of $500,000. So definitely not a cheap exercise. But once Pegasus is on your device, it actually takes over your microphone, your camera, and any other data that's on the device. Obviously, it becomes quite difficult to remove, but it's also hard to detect by standard MTD solutions like Jamf Protect. So the way Jamf Executive Threat Protection protects customers from spyware such as Pegasus is looking for system-level attacks, zero clicks, one clicks exploits. And the cool thing is it actually provides extended logs and details. So if the device has been compromised, the security team can identify what part and what was compromised off that specific device.
Okay, fantastic. So with both of these tools being used to secure mobile devices, when would Jamf Protect be used, and when would Jamf Exec Threat Protection be used?
Yeah, great. Look, it's a great question. Obviously, I touched on some of the areas that, from an MTD perspective, it can't identify threats like Pegasus. But the best way to look at this is take it in the sense of your home. You've got your house, standard, you'll have a lock on the front door, lock on the back door. Effectively, that's Jamf Protect for mobile. But then if you go to that second level of security where you've got your cameras, your motion sensors, your alarms, and the forensic team that come in and investigate if anyone's broken into, that's effectively Jamf Executive Threat Protection. It's that level on top. And in the instance of the house, you would only go to that level of security if you had something or someone important you want to protect. And hence why Jamf Executive Threat Protection is targeted for executives in organizations or people in government that have highly sensitive information on their device and tend to travel a fair bit. So a big part of today's session, I talked about Jamf security capability. But in fact, at Jamf, we believe that it's only one part of a secure Apple environment and Apple ecosystem. So really, trusted access combines and connects the best of management, identity, and security to make up these 6 elements that we believe are absolutely key to be successful in an Apple environment. So starting off with enrollment, which is built into every Apple device, right, which eliminates the risk associated with insecure enrollments. And this is also something relevant for BYOD devices and making sure that they are enrolled. So automation is also very important. Obviously, it's important to have responses to any threat risk. So this could be simple as pushing through a outdated operating system, locking a device if it's been stolen, enforcing passcode, and putting patches through. So it's really important to have those automation that can be done remotely by a security team. The second piece of it is making sure that your device is secure. So obviously making sure that there's no malware, Trojanware on the device, obviously that the device is compliant, running the fundamental operating systems on that device. So really your basic security hygiene of a device. And once we know that the device is secure, it is very important to prevent any ongoing threats. Obviously we spoke about this in detail through Jamf Protect and Protect for mobile. Also the identity. Now this is integrating into your IDP obviously to ensure that the user is who they say they are. They do belong to the environment, they work within the organization, and that device is a known device utilized within that company is extremely important. And then lastly, obviously we touch on this with the ZTNA capability, but making sure that we're providing the correct user within that organization with the relevant information that they need. So they're only accessing what they need, not everything that's available in the company.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess a key takeaway would be that with trusted access, no user or device is automatically trusted. Both would need to be checked and verified before any access to resources is provided.
Perfect. Look, that absolutely sums up what trusted access is. And really these 6 pillars are designed to ensure that only authorized users on enrolled devices are secure and compliant can access that sensitive data.
Thank you for your insightful information on Jamf Trusted Access, Nader. It was fantastic. As shown, to provide organizations with Jamf Zero Trust environments, a combination of Jamf tools are utilized. This gives users an out-of-the-box experience, allowing them to work productively and securely. What is your advice for organizations wanting to implement Jamf Trusted Access and are wondering where to start?
Look, that's a great question, Alistair. Obviously, we presented as 6 pillars, which can be a bit daunting for people to look at. The way to look at trusted access, it is a journey. It's not an overnight approach. The best way to kick off your trusted access journey is obviously work with the team at Jamf or Compnow to really address that process and that journey, because each organization will have different requirements and even their starting line will be very different to others. So definitely my advice is to reach out to yourself and your team to help. And I know you guys have done some great work with some customers that we've recently worked on as well when we started that trusted access journey with.
Yeah, and speaking of great examples, we have a large Compnow client in Victoria that had a requirement by their InfoSec team to improve their security posture. They were required to implement CIS security baselines and have greater overall control of the security of their Apple fleet. By implementing Jamf Protect, it provided the client with the tools required to manage vulnerabilities in their environment, and it also provided them with the security controls they required over their devices. We also utilized Jamf Compliance Editor to implement CIS security baselines. Now they're halfway through their Jamf Trusted Access journey and are looking to implement modern identity and access controls, which will give them an improved security posture and secure Apple devices.
Yeah, look, I know that customer, obviously we can't share the name at the moment, but that was definitely a great example of kicking off that journey. And obviously we are working on a few more organizations that are at different parts of that trusted access journey. So it's great to hear.
Thanks for the fantastic insights into Jamf Trusted Access and security of Apple devices in the organization. It was really fantastic.
No, it was a pleasure being here. It was great talking to yourself and the wider audience.
Fantastic. And thank you for joining our webinar on securing Apple devices. We hope you gained valuable insights into enhancing your organization's security. Compnow provides IT custom built for your needs. If you would like to know more about what we spoke about today, please get in touch with your Compnow account manager or email us at info@compnow.com.au. Thank you.